So you were born in 1940s, Japan,
Mm.
when the country was in the midst of the war. And you grew up in that environment. So what is your experience that you'd like to share during that period?
In my case, everybody says, remember from which age, starting the memory started of childhood. My hand was taken by my mother in very cold winter time, escaping from air bombing. Then in the otherwise we cannot eat. But in case of Iran, I should start about that. Why we need court? Because that say at that time when I was invited after oil crisis, they have a lot of oil dollars. In my high school days, I am involved about the mountain climbing and so on. Then first start with each simple peak, but now walking of the hills. And then I'm now motivated for studying.
Namaste. Welcome. Today's guest is Dr. Noriaki Kano, world famous proponent of TQM, who has visited 82 countries spreading this message, who is the most recognized person, and his most well known contribution is attractive quality creation, which is known as a Kano model. We're going to learn from him as to how, when, and why he got involved in TQM movement. Good morning, Dr. Kano.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for agreeing to this podcast.
Thank you.
This is in the context of what we call the history of India's quality renaissance since 1980s. And we're recording, thoughts of people who have made useful contribution. And you have made a tremendous contribution to India as a quality renaissance. And we deeply appreciate your willingness to share your thoughts. Dr. Noriaki Kano, for the interest of those who are attending this podcast, he is probably the most preeminent professional in the field of quality management in the world, with over 60 years of experience. I got to know Dr. Kano maybe around early 1990s. I don't exactly remember where, but certainly in Budapest, 1992 EOQ Congress, and 1983 in the EOQ Congress in Helsinki, where you presented a paper on attractive quality creation. 1993.
Yeah. Wonder. No, maybe I didn't remember when I did it. Maybe I did it as 1908 or 99 in Paris.
Okay.
At that time, I did that self.
okay.
I did the first debut in IAQ.
Okay.
IAQ conference, yes.
Okay. IAQ conference, not
Or
EOQ.
EOQ, IAQ. I could not identify that. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. And after we got involved with Komatsu Career Creation Limited in 1995 96, when we brought teams of people from India, from various group companies, senior executives, to visit Japan for learning what we call as a TQM, TPS, TPM study mission. And these teams went there, and Komatsu Career Creation set up the programs. And you were the prime leader in terms of taking the session and design of the program. So that's how I got to know you better. And after that, of course, you came to India and helped us, and various forums like ANQ, IAQ, GQFW. So that's when we got to know each other very well. And subsequently in 2018, we signed an agreement between KQRO and TQMI for cooperation in a formal manner. So that's how the relationship deepened and the ability to understand your concepts improved. So Dr. Kano is probably the most recognized quality professional in the world in terms of all various organizations, EOQ, ASQ, IAQ. He's an honorary member. He's been given the highest award by all these organizations, including the Quality Laureate, the first winner of the Quality Laureate Award. And that was, I think, in 2019, I think 2000, something like that. Thank you very much once again. Welcome you to this podcast. So, may I raise a few queries to which you can respond? And it doesn't matter, you were a little hesitant about the English language, but we all understand. Quality goes beyond languages. So the language may be a little enhanced, but the basic philosophy, thoughts, and all that are relevant. And I'm sure people will be able to understand and use the inputs they get from you. So may I start with first question?
Yes, please.
So first of all, would like to look at your roots of a quality thinker. Okay, so you were born in 1940s, Japan, when the country was in the midst of the war between Allied and the Axis forces. And you grew up in that environment. So, what is your experience that you'd like to share during that period, whereby you can share what happened, and it'll set a reference as to your uh, early life and then quality journey later on.
Well, so first, thank you very much to invite me to this very honorable opportunity to talk about myself. Let's say, and then so maybe now I should say to call you as Mr. Janak Mehta, but say you are so friendly so long time. So maybe say as usual, I talk call you say just Janak, and also you may call me Noriaki. All right?
Yeah, great.
Okay, now that you ask me about my, thank you very much about, but say my the infant days. So that to say, in my case, everybody say, remember from which age, starting the memory started about childhood. In my case, is that very clearly remember that because that to say, my first to say scene I remember about my childhood. That is that say, my hand was taken by my mother in very cold winter time. We have put the how do you call it that to say like it's a I don't know how to call it. It's the say like anyway we are escaping from air bombing in Tokyo in the night. So every night come to be that air bombing by U.S. Air Force. So that to say that was very terrible. I think that by that reason it remained that memory. That was my first memory. So that to say say, and then of course I did not know exactly data when I come grown up, and then I heard about that it was when by mother, and then understand that it was 1944, say November, something started, and then December, and then we moved to that say escape from this to the to we are going to that to say native town of my father in the northeast of Japan. That then escape from this bombing. Let's say that is that's in the case. So that then, so in this experience, that say we felt about that very much importance of the peace. So that was, say, I think, from that, say, from China, we know about something, because compared with today's various areas of that battle area, our situation is not so much terrible situation. So I have never seen that anybody killed, but say, like just escaping in the very dark night in the street like this. So that is first impact is that about the peace. I think so in the case, the reason you are talking about me, in the case, say, for the past, I look about that to say, now this 80 years, my life, over the 80 years, say, I'm very happy to be those 80 years. I have never encountered any war, or say, particularly after the World War II, like this. Then afterward, we had a very difficult time, maybe around that to say 45 to 50 or 60. Around that time, so another memory of the day about my age of that say like primary school, beginning of primary school day that I was very hungry because that to say we cannot have the enough food. So that I remember that every meal time, we had a quarrel with my sisters. Today, that say so the food is put on the plate and then on the center. We can take as much as like. But at that time, is that to say mother assigned, and then sometimes my meat of that to say my meat for my mother assigned seemed to be 1 millimeter smaller than my sister. Then I insist, I'm a boy, more need energy, so should have much bigger one like this kind of quote, I remember it, that. So, at the beginning of that, say, remember about that primary school day, that's very hungry. And then come to be that the senior guy, and then I come to be remember that say something enjoying about that. And then for the kid, that to say, I remember the first to say, first gift from my father, that was that bicycle. Of course, that it was very expensive, but by this reason, cannot buy the new bicycle, but the second hand news. But that was very say I was excited, and then but this is very also frequently fails that. Maybe that is my first experience of the quality. I didn't understand it at quality, but at that time I considered that to happen that a particular punk, uh, how do you say
Puncture. Mm.
punctured very frequently. So at first I asked about that bicycle, the shop, but say later I do it by myself, like this. So those kind of things, and then so I understand the importance of this. And another point of that, say in the case, what I learned about in school is that to say in Japan, we learn about the very frequently we learn about that. Say Japan is that say no natural resources, and then our land is completely destroyed by the war. And then many people come back from various area in the world, come back from China or Southeast Asia, like this, come back, and then population is expanded. But say our food is not enough. So in the case, we must purchase that. So in this case, what we can do is that we import the raw material, processing, and then export. So export is very important. And then also we learn about that to say, for that, in order to get to the export, we need quality. That is what I learn about that. This is that to say, I think, very give the impact about it. So in case that say, I don't know when I started to think about that as quality as consumer satisfaction. I learned it, Professor Ishikawa, but to say by myself that say important thing is that to say quality mean that for the enhancement of quality mean necessary for export to get to the US dollar. And then by this, we can buy something from outside. We can buy the food like this. This is what I think I have learned about this. So that to say. And then, yes, now come to be high school, so on, come to be more, say, become rich, and then we can have some money for the pocket money. So in this case, I'm starting to walk around, sometimes frequently go to the mountain near Tokyo. So that is starting thing. And then also in the case that say I'm understand first, I'm going to the one single peak. But now that I'm understand going to be the kind of that say hills, it is here. So in the from beginning to the end, to how to walk around this. So there are two kinds of climbing. One is going to the valley, another one is walking on the hill. I belong to the something walking hill. I think this is later given that say to do. My one of the concept is that from the end to end. This philosophy come out from my this experience like this. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for your sharing this experience. What impact did it have on the education of people, students at that point of time in Japan?
Okay. In the so high school, as I mentioned that to say, it's a island school about the importance of the export
Mhm.
and the importance of that to say for that purpose quality. may not so clearly, but to say importance in the case, it must be something special for export. That is, those kind of things. Also, we must learn about that's a very important. We don't have no resources. So in the case that to say what we can do in the international economic society, in this case, for survival, we work so diligently. Maybe I think those kind of things is a common thing, which we not for only for me, but all the generation. We can share this concept that. And also maybe not also this is I think this may be very much say supported that to for the further development in industry later.
I recall I had invited Professor Kusaba to visit India. He was the first Japanese after Professor Ishikawa, whom I invited to visit India in 1989 through JUICE. So in a Bangalore hotel, in a class hotel where it's a five-star hotel, all the people were
Mm-hmm.
well fed. So when he was giving a talk on total quality control,
Mm-hmm.
so one of the speakers raised his hand for a question. And he said, it may be okay for TQC for people who are well to do and rich.
Mm.
But in India, people don't have two square meals to eat in a day.
Mm.
So, how can they relate to quality?
Mm.
I think Professor Kusaba's answer was very good. He said, when I passed out from the university after the war, I became a lecturer.
Mm.
I did not have the strength to write on the blackboard for more than 15 minutes because I was so hungry. I had no food to eat. We used to live on two bowls of rice in a day. So that is the condition we were in, and we focused on quality.
Mm.
But if you think quality is only for the rich,
Mm.
that's your privilege.
Mm.
So that is a challenge in India. We never felt the kind of a situation which Japan felt. And people who from well to do families never felt the need for quality. So I think this is a remarkable difference between the two, which we learned from what you said and what Professor Kusaba said at that point of time.
So I had that to say a similar experience when worked in Iran in 1970s. But maybe I talk to that in the later. I guess you have a question about my
Yes,
international experience. Yeah.
that's right. So from undergraduate to PhD, all from the University of Tokyo
Mm.
in engineering
Mm.
subjects.
Mm.
What drew you to such a rigorous path of study? Why did you choose engineering as a subject of study?
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Right?
So in this case, so you see, maybe I think that to say I was quite a good student until high school, and then I would always say I had a great some effort. But maybe before one thing I must talk about that myself as regard that the high school days. So in high school days, particularly as regard the science, as regard that physics, chemistry, or so anything, I have many curiosity. So I make many questions. So that to say every time when come back to or to study, preview or review, I say made a question and then I got from the classroom I got the answer that I wrote it, and then still remained this. And then also I make a question. Every time that I say I'm very famous in the classroom, I make a very, very frequent question. And sometimes teacher mentioned to me, don't do it in the classroom because it's the problem of you spending the time. So you may come to me personally and also do this. But sometimes that to say I have the question which I cannot get the answer from this. In this case, that to say, in my neighborhood, so maybe he, that to say, maybe 4 years elder than I or so on. He was very excellent. So at that time, he's already that a student of University of Tokyo. So that to say, he was very much say, carefully, kindly treat me. So that to say, I don't know, we don't have no contact so on, but just say, I visit him and then he is giving answer. And then by this reason, I frequently visited him. And then he does not is a home tutor, more than home tutor, I think. But he was so kind. And then, but he did, I make a question. I forgot about that. But say, what he do that, just prepare the one paper, white paper, blank paper. And then say he is writing a summary of what I say. Like this. And then now this is your question. But in this case, how about this part? And then I remember I mentioned about the more clearly the question. So maybe that say nearly half, 50% of the page is spent for my clarification of my question. And then when it comes to be it is divided, sub question. So it comes to be sub question. I can already get the answer from my knowledge. And then he mentioned, now this area you don't know that. But in this area, as far as he knows about that, those kind of things. And then he explained to me that. So that say it was very big say impact to me. I think one of the reasons if I'm successful after that professional age that I learned from his. His name is Dr. Ryokichi Tarao. Later he come to be the PhD in Tokyo, and then also he was at say Central Research Institute of the very big company, and then come to be the general manager of that, like this. So that to say, I was in this personally, I will train this very much back. So I think that in case of the high school days, also many people had some personal experience. In this case, at that time we have no system for the home tutor, but say personally, very much say by chance, I'm very lucky to find Mr. Ryokichi Tarao. So he is very good guy. Yes. Still, we have that to say. Recently, he celebrated that to say 19 years old celebration that. So that.
Mhm. Actually, everybody has an opportunity
Mm,
surrounded by
mm,
such people.
mm,
You went to him.
mm,
Most of us don't go to such a teacher.
mm,
So it's not that he's available, but your enthusiasm to go and search for answers. And now I no wonder I've known you for the last so many years. You keep asking the same question to all companies we interact with. And they very often find it very difficult to question that you're asking.
yeah.
And then through questions, you help them to find the answers. I can now sense and relate it to what experience you had in the school days.
Yeah, I think you're correct that to say. Some people may understand Japanese way is started by from five why, but I don't say. When it is very interesting. When I went to U.S. in one company, they say they are talking about the five why. Then I asked, now why for what? Now understand. They don't identify what, but just talk about why. Okay. So I think about that's a very important thing, the what. Okay. And then, of course, we have going to the why and finally how. But say not forget about the what. Maybe say if say I have in my some TKM coaching, if I have something characteristic, I'm so spend so much time for what. I think that it come from that say uh, Dr. Ryokichi Tarao. Mm.
Okay, that's very interesting. And I can sense the discomfort. Well, actually, when we moved to do some work in the Middle East, we learned from the Japanese how to ask the question and question of the participants, how we raise another question for him to think. So I was told by some companies, you are a consultant. We are paying you for you to give me answers, not to raise a question. And that is the biggest challenge even in India, because they're used to the Western consultants to give answers, very uncomfortable if we raise a question for them to think through.
So now you are questioning just about my experience in the university.
Yeah.
So that say in the case that I'm very ashamed to talk about that, maybe the first 2 years of my university say life because that say I was failed once, first time. So 1 year I did was spend it for the preparation of retry, re-examination. Okay, and then next year I was successful to enter the University of Tokyo. Then I was so much delighted, so much pleased. Then that say in the case that say 18 years old, that's a good age to do everything like this, mount climbing and also that to say various say social club or so like also that say like a girlfriend or so on like this. So that to say I didn't so much focus to work in university. And then also in case of the high school, if I'm absent, say somebody check mention to me that. But the university, everybody is very free. So that say, I'm ashamed to say that to say I'm not a good student and then very, if I say that percentage to attend the class is very, very, say, low level, okay? Then, of course, it is reflect. Say at the time that in the university, first semester, that is also another problem. So first semester, let's say, I was so good. And they also say many students, particularly who come from that say countryside, they are excellent students at his home, but come to be the Tokyo. There are so many say students, so they are very much say they felt about that, so they should study more like this. But in my case, that the first year, so nice, okay. So that say now I think you know about my four-student model for the policy management. That come from this experience.
Okay.
Okay. So then, in this way, that say I have a very difficulty. Later at night when I notice it, it takes a quite long time. Maybe that when come to be, maybe that they come to be junior students, so on. And then at that time, say in this situation, that to say I'm not so successful, say to the first choice. Okay, it may be that very low choice. That is the I selected that. But then, then in come to be the senior student, I must select that to say professor, supervising professor. So I selected first choice professor. About he had that he had this 5 chairs, 6 students appeared, and then look at me and say, "Oh, you don't come to my class." Then checked. Then that say I have difficulty. Where? But then say I found that which professor had a vacant seat. That is Professor Ishikawa. And then at that time that say his subject of that say I selected that applied chemistry. That area that say he is doing that the fuel engineering and he is say doing the coal mine industry. In case that say, at that time coal mining is a very very one of the rare one of the say one of the exceptional mine. We don't have no iron or so on, no others. We had only that the copper. Say historically, we are very rich in about the gold. In the 15th or 16th century, Japan is very famous in the world that say we are very rich mining about the gold. And also that to say copper. And then also we have some coal. Then that when I come to be that to say this, the coal already coal mine is come to be almost exhausted. So that to say, and then also we need the coal for many steel making. That must be that say high viscosity. But say in our coal has very short history as regard that say they could say may have that it should have that say like 100,000 years, 100,000 100 million. No, I don't. 100 million years or more than that. India is like this. But our core is, say, like 30 million or 40 million. It's very young. So it is not so high viscous. It's not so high carbon. It's like this. So that to say, so in the case, but professor do it as kind of that, doing that analytical analysis of core analysis. So it does not seem to be anything say that's say attractive. But anyway, I that was only my seat which I can select it. Then I entered his research group, and then I found about that. That his front, how to say, front, how do you call it that to say, front plate, how do you call it, entrance. We put that the title of the shop, okay?
Yeah.
That is, say, like this is the shop of that to say, like electric shop or so on. What is
Right.
this?
Uh,
This is sign or
yeah, signboard. Oh,
signboard, okay?
right.
On the front signboard, say like a core analysis or analytical chemistry of the core.
Yeah.
But backside they have the core is that the quality control.
Okay.
In case that he is very interesting about that, say like analysis, but to say he is very interested about that the core related with that to say related with steel making. So in the case, say they must buy that core from outside overseas. So in the case that say it is we are purchasing of the carbon in the core.
Right.
But to say when it is say in the case when it is say detected, I don't know, in this case both sides when it is loading port, it is doing analysis.
Okay.
And also say unloading port again. And then their comparison. Say loading part say, for example, say like a 4%, but unloading part say 3.9%. Always unloading part is that say lower. Loading part is there. That is the internationally well-known thing. And then by the reason that say very much say many specialists say doing how to make precise about the they understood the chemical analysis issue. But Professor Ishikawa is different. That the important thing is that say then he is looking at the gemba, and then find about that say sampling is very much say dependent on that say port by port. Some ports select very much lump. So some ports select that powder. Of course, the lump is more high, generally high content. But powder include the mud and so on, sand and so on. It is poor content.
Right.
So in this case, this is not a matter of the analysis. So to get the evaluation measurement done consists two process. One process is sampling. Another process is that to say is analysis. But many specialists focus on this. But he says that say he focus about that sampling. And then in case that the statistics tells that say how many pieces sample should be taken that. Okay? But in this case that say in case of the bulk material, how to count the number? Count the number of lump or how to count that say powder or what? It is a completely question part. But in this area, as far as I know, he is only first person. So this is his doctor paper.
Right.
He did the actual. I was very impressed about this. So by the reason that say he started to say learn about that to say statistical method. And then at that time, that say his father is a very famous guy, very greatest person in the Japanese economic area. So that say, and then he was that say also the chairman of JSE, Ichiro Ishikawa. And then maybe they are talking, and then that say professor mentioned about that say something interesting about statistics. But say in this case now he mentioned about that say in the JSE also. Working today in the court area. I think this by this reason he started to say work for quality.
Okay.
Okay, so that say now that say first, maybe first time say I'm not so interested about the coal mining for this, but afterward that say I'm interested about the back plate, back sign. That is curriculum. That is the starting point, and then I'm now motivated for study. Before I entered, I say university. I'm interested of various, say, outside of school issue, not interested inside the school. But say now I'm interested. Then I started to study.
That's very interesting. I've known you for so long, but I never knew this part of the
Oh,
story.
really? Okay.
It makes very interesting for
Yeah.
everyone to think about
Mm.
what first and then why,
Yes, yes.
and then what motivates one
Yes,
person to
yes.
the purpose for which you
Yeah,
want to. That's how your
Yeah.
interest in study
Yeah,
grew
yeah.
again.
So what I learned from him that at that time I don't know how to express that. But if I say that my today's word that say what he mentioned about that say importance of that bird's eye view and worm eye view. So that say many specialists say as regard the precision of the core, then jump to that say there is a matter of that analysis, chemical analysis. That is very much my view. The professor look at from a high place. To say it's a very precise. Many professors go, especially going on that area. But more essential part is that say sampling. And then he created this area. So this concept I learned from him like this, I think.
Come to think of it, in India we have a big challenge. Nobody looks at sampling. Most companies we work with, when you go there,
Yeah.
everybody talks about QC process chart, SOP, but sampling, inspection and sampling is considered very low level work. And
But
the senior management
yeah,
doesn't.
I forgot the name of the technical committee number in ISO. But his method is taken by this, say, as a technical committee ISO. This comes to be the ISO standard. So and then finally what he did is say, he invented that something scoop.
Right.
The size of scoop is very important. When I see his doctor paper is that like this. So he gave us as a student who the PhD student. When come to be PhD student, give it. So that it's very bulky. And then Professor Kumi and myself always say, oh, that is appropriate as a pillow. So when I open it, so there are many, we can find the figure of the shape of the, say, like a scoop. I don't know why this is so important. I could not understand. It takes a long time. You see, in case of bulk material sampling, statistics say how many number. But in case of the bulk material, how to count 1, 2, 3, one piece or two piece? Which piece are talking about this? So in case of bulk material, in the case by the size of the say particle size, higher one is that very high, but come to below it's wrong. So in the case one scoop, how average take all the say like this. So this is cannot be decided by theory. He did that say experiment. And then by which ways, how to reduce that say deviation, standard deviation. And then invented that some size. And then by this way, now that to say, by this concept that statistics introduced it.
Okay.
So that I myself, when I learn about say statistics, say get the number of sample size. Immediately, oh, it's easy, we can do it. But in one company in India, okay, the assembly, they asked me about that, say, how many say, how many number of the product. The product so big one, okay? Then say like in the case how much, but statistically how many like this. But in case of such kind of thing is that say it consists of the say various components.
Yes.
So in the case we may consider so those kinds of concept is also I learned from myself. It come from that idea of how Professor Ishikawa come to be the sampling problem.
Fabulous.
Yes.
That is
Mm.
phenomenal. You've been a part of the quality movement for over 60 years.
Mm.
When and how you got involved in the quality movement of Japan,
Mm.
what was your motivation?
Mm. That's good question. In case that say as a
Mm.
so personally say at the beginning, I'm only think about that what kind of area I can work. I'm not interested about the domestic way or international approach. I'm always think about by myself. How can eat as a professional? In this case, my find about that my area, okay? Which
Mm.
areas like this? So that is that after PhD, I entered, say, I'm recruited by that University of Electro Communication. It's a suburb of Tokyo. Then at that time, that say, mm, so and then of course say at that time that most of the academic people, court area, do it, the research in the statistical quality control. And then, but statistical quality control is done do that by the say, like mathematical statistics. And then in this area, we know about that say, Mahalanobis or Lao or so many Indian scholars.
Mm.
So excellent, so high level mathematics. And then, but so many say brilliant professor, senior successor than me, senior people.
Mm.
They are very excellent. Do it. But myself, you see, my learning in the say junior level of the university is very poor. I have very poor in the say like a basic say mathematics or so on, like those kind of things, mathematics and those, mathematics or statistics or so or probability theory so on. So I think that I take the say PhD, something do it as regard that say I'm very much ashamed about that, but to say I don't do anything so good thing about that. But anyway, I'm fortunately say passed that examination of that say PhD student like this PhD dissertation test. Mm. But there I'm thinking about that. What I should do this. And then I thought about it. At that time I started to think about that the quality control from bird's eye view. So in the case of quality control, maybe at that time starting, it is also say quality management. In this case, two areas. One is the quality area, another one is the management area. Statistics is one of the management area. So there are many specialists like this. There are so many papers who come. I cannot see any paper talk about that to say quality. So say I think that now I got the impact from the Professor Ishikawa. He selected us. The reason why say Professor Ishikawa was successful, it believed by the sampling, because sampling he does not nobody pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
I accept something similar way that say, and then I thought about that. My research should be the quality. And then another point is that to say, like now at that time, so when I stay in the Professor Ishikawa's room, he frequently go to abroad. So that there are many professors. Oh, most professors do it say once per year, or once for 2 years like this. At that time, like this. So that to say, but but I feel about that. That he's frequent. And he come back. He talk about various international matter like this. So I was say very much say impacted.
Mm-hmm.
So that to say, and then I think this is not only me. I think also other, so like Professor Kume and also other guys. He's a disciple. He's very much compared with other professor disciples that more very much internationally say work. So that maybe I'm trying to do it something international activity.
Okay.
So, but in the case of internationally, it needs that money to go and also opportunity. In the case that we cannot do not so many things at the time doing, say out aggressive way, just waiting. Something come, opportunity come immediately.
Okay.
Good it. So that kind of thing, yes.
So after 10 years of quality, you explained why you chose quality as a profession.
Mm.
And
So the answer is that is only one way. No
only
selection.
opportunity.
Okay, is right. Many is excellent students that say they select the life, but for me, that is the only way for me.
You were lucky, it means.
Yes, lucky. This come to be lucky. So
Okay.
I know in so today we have many. We have we have the classmate meeting. Everybody very successful do it in many areas. But say everybody understand me very lazy student, poor student. But now he is still working.
Yes.
Surprising like this, yeah.
Right. And working around the world.
Yes.
That's okay. So now we look at your contribution to quality around the world. So you've taught in Japan, Iran, USA, Europe, Taiwan, Thailand, India, China, and many other countries. What surprised you the most when you saw how different cultures approach quality and customer satisfaction?
So most say I would say get the impact was my visit to Iran. In case of Japan, as I mentioned that to say, for us, I think we thought about that say we need to develop the quality for the export. Then in the otherwise we cannot eat. But in case of Iran, I should start about that. Why we need quality? Because that say at that time when I was invited after oil crisis, they have a lot of oil dollars based on the asset. Like in the case that say they have, so in case that of course, and then also that say they are, if they want to have some high quality product, they can buy from Europe or US like this. So that to say quality can buy without effort. So that is, and then I really understand that say that why Japan was successful because we have no resources, and then we have also say people. People is our asset. That we understand that say, and then for this power, how we can continue that particular importance of education. This that is. Then say after that, I went to US. And in case of US, that to say, we are very, in case of the US, that is starting 1980. At that time, the US say, the reason why I was invited that, say, US say that 1980 is a very famous TV program, NBC TV program. If Japan can, why can't we? And then talk about that. At that time now, first US started to think about that deficit of international trade. And then now today also Mr. Trump is doing. But say the first impact started from the say 1980. And then they tried to run from Japan. It's a very big cultural revolution. You see, in case of US, let's say like very historically they have problem the Negro is that say like a black and white issue like this. And also on the behind that, also they have also say underestimate that yellow people. They don't have, so in the case of that say after the World War II, they have the superiority feeling. They are teaching yellow people like this. So, but in case now that say after that say 30 or 40 years have passed, they should run? They can run from Europe, but why they run about that say yellow people? This kind of thing is that there are very few people who talk about this, but we can find about this kind of mentality gap. I think this kind of thing happening always in any country like this. But they start to run it say like this, and then in this for me also when I go to US, that say we know after the World War II, we already consider the US great country. It's a very advanced country. So we must learn something. So I'm very glad to teaching, teaching to say, to transfer to the Japanese methodology to this. So we learn about TQC from uh, US, but then we developed and then we exported to them. I'm very glad that. I'm very proud of that. See? But at the same time, that say still I feel about that. US should have something secret. US has been then for the past 30 years, 40 years. For this 10 years so on, maybe Japan is doing something. But the total viewpoint, US is a great advanced country. So we must learn about that. Particularly, we must learn about that new product developments and also top management area. Then I'm say very much say, carefully observe it. So this is I talk about that. Say like as regard that what I have find about that it is say like uh, decision making. In case of that to say, U.S. is that say I talk it say like uh, so A strategy and J strategy. Uh, A strategy is mean America. American way, strategic management, that. So it was, say, decided by top management. And then it is, say, directed to the subordinate or the usual employee, do it. But J approach is that, say, like I say, we are getting the idea from the Gemba and then pick up this and then to make it. That is the J approach. So that to say, in case of that to say 1980s, J approach was very strict, strong. But afterward that say Japan come to be very much say a difficult time. We said lost 20 years or lost 30 years like this. But in this case, in that case, we learn about that. We are very poor that to say A approach. In case of that 90s to come to be 2000, this say change from 20th century, 21st century. That say Japan was very terribly say difficult situation in this. At that time, that the yen comes to be very strong, and and the globalization going on, and then IT very advanced. At that time, that say the Japanese had a difficulty, and because so by the reason that the most important thing for that the company, Japanese company, that say to close the plant in Japan and transfer to say overseas, like China and also other countries, including India, like this. This decision is not done by J approach. It must be done top down approach. Stop is that this is not done by the J approach. But this it takes a long time to make a decision. Yes. So now, but say afterward that say come to be, we have the 19 so the 2008, we have the Lehman shock. At that time, that to say, or Japanese do it very good way, very quickly react this because by the experience is going to be this American way like this. So in this way, that's maybe those two example case of Iran and America. So it's a very much linked with that to say culture and the TQM very much say.
With respect to your contribution to India, you've been coming to India for a fairly long time.
Mm.
been there earlier, but from
Mm,
2005 onwards, it's
mm,
very
mm,
frequent,
mm,
working with some companies
mm,
and things like
mm,
that.
mm.
So, while doing all this, you also chose to visit all the states of India.
Mm.
Why did you want to do that?
Yeah, say like you see, as I mentioned that in my high school days, I am involved about the mount climbing and so on. Then first start with the each simple peak, but now walking of the hills, and then from end to end. So that to say, this kind of thing come to be that to say now come to be now later. I'm no more difficult to mount climbing, but to make a trip. So in case first start from that say in Japan that say I try to visit all the prefectures. We have 47 prefectures. We try to do it like this. First, do it for the usual transportation, but next, do it all the car by car. And then also that now U.S. is also now that say I frequently go to U.S. by the reason that I try to visit all the states. And then, in the case, if you say doing the trip, one country, only based on the business, it is very much focused, some area very frequently. But there are many areas which we have never done this. But in the case that say, by this trip, I think US, we learn about that to say, like very interesting, which I have never been there. For example, like Montana, Alaska, or say like, also that Alabama, say Nevada, or many area like this. Those area, many area, it can be done by visit. And then I learn something more about the better way about the country. I do it the same way also China. So I have visited all the say provinces of China. I did it also Taiwan. Then I come to visit India. So maybe say many people at that time now find about they have been to India so many times. But when I'm hearing them, they visit always say very much focused to like a Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai, or say Pune, or say Bangalore, like this. Very focused. But say at the same time, if we visit this, so in the case, sometimes we find out most in case of the visit to the India, difficult point is that to find the opportunity to visit that the same in the north is that Muslim what is the state?
North Sea, Seven Sisters.
No, no, no. In the north, that is that Muslim states.
Kashmir,
Kashmir, Jam and
Jammu and Kashmir,
German Kashmir.
Leh.
Yeah, that is those area like this, and also Seven Sisters like this. So I have run. If I don't visit, say particularly Seven Sisters,
Mhm.
so I cannot understand that. You see that the India is now very big changing. Say the beginning, first time, the beginning of 2000, so 21st century. If you go to India, any city like Delhi or so, any hotel, there are very few ladies working. But say today, in many areas, young ladies working. But many of them come from that say Seven Sisters. Seven Sisters is say I believe opening the labor market for ladies, and then now today also Hindu ladies also working like this. Those kind of things can understand to visit all this kind of thing like this. So that is very interesting. Yes.
How did it help you to coach in India with wider understanding of?
I hope not just so much, but from now on, if I'm working for the company which is selling all over the states, all over the countries, maybe in this case, particularly consumer goods, in this case, maybe I think it will be very helpful.
So I also heard often you mention when you came to India first, is to hear a lot of honking or noise
Yeah,
cars, and
yeah,
you
yeah,
find any difference now?
yeah. I think this is not the matter. Say, I don't know the case of U.S. or Europe, but say in case of Japan, say
Mm.
it's maybe 1960s or 70s. Tokyo is a very noisy city. And then I thought about that. That is, we are proud of that because noisy is a kind of that we are accepted, a kind of the symbol of industrialization or civilization. But then come to be maybe 1980, 1970 and 1980, very big changes happening. In case Japanese today, many people in the world say that we are very punctual. But actually, when I am student at that time, then we are very much old. Many newspaper talk about that Japanese are very not punctual. Yes, in my university age, that say it's not seldom that a professor delay 15 minutes, or maybe 30 minutes, not so many, but say like this, 10 to 15 minutes delay, it's very natural. Even the commercial seminar like JC also sometimes that happening that nobody say criticize that. So that it is. However, come to be 1980s, come to be very say punctual, come to be. I think that later I understand say that the punctual comes to be supported by that say our transportation. 1960 or 70, there were many say transportation in Tokyo. It dependent on the bus and the streetcar. But say in 1980 come to be now most of the subway network has been completed. So people come, many people come to the any places in Tokyo by subway and on the foot walking place. So in the case, in this way that when we started to work for that say overseas that every party is very noisy, but this is mean that say this is a symbol of the development. And then let's say first I thought about that say such kind of say very noisy cities she come to be very silent is that say in Taipei, that is the middle of 1990s. Also it is dependent on their say subway and so this. And then afterward that to say yes, Thailand also started to be done. And then but after COVID-19, I can, but I felt about something that to say different. I cannot explain about that. But maybe at that time, first I went to the Bangalore. I noticed that at that time, before the Bangalore, I remember it's very noisy. It's a say anytime I cannot hear about the horn. Every place is a horn like this. But to say in the Bangalore, I found about that I cannot hear any horn. Very silent. I was surprised at like this. And then I found it say it is also not only Bangalore, also any area. Of course, sometimes that say like some very high traffic jam happens, still come back. But say India come to be very totally silent. And then this is not only India, but also after say COVID-19, I find about the same thing happening that say like Bangkok. And also now even Bangladesh also now starting to be, yeah.
How do you see the reception to a term like total quality management systems, approaches, methodologies, principles? How are they received, let's say, in Europe versus USA versus Asia?
So now that the 1980s, some companies do it, but right now, I don't know. Maybe my understanding is that maybe something that methodology viewpoint is that some methodology can be applied, but not the name of TKM, but like seven tools or by such kind of methodology. And also some methodology is absorbed as a Six Sigma. They say this is do it under Six Sigma, but actually it was originally born in the TQM, like this, those kind of things. But so in the case, I don't. But as regard Asia, particularly that say like a QC circle is very much well rooted in many countries, I think.
Even in Europe and
No, no,
US,
no, in that in Asia.
in Asia.
But to say, but recently I hear something, but I'm not so much confirmed about this. But say I heard about that some very enthusiastic say expert. Say his name is David Hutchins. He is trying to say disseminate some European companies. Mm.
Okay. Because I recall I think it was the year 2000 or so, there was a EOQ conference in Paris,
Mm.
along with the FQM. Jointly, they did
Mm.
first time, I think, 2000 or 2002.
Mm.
And the main session with 1,000 people attending,
Mm.
there was three compares, like the chairman of Dutch Telecom, French Telecom, and British Telecom. They raised a question on the screen, and every participant was given a handheld terminal to vote. So the question was, which country in the world has made the most contribution to the quality movement?
Mm.
And the option was USA, Europe, Japan, and others. So virtually 50% of the participants, 60% of the participants said Japan.
Mm.
And 38% talked about USA. And 12% said Europe.
Mm.
The next question they raised was, which individual has made the most contribution?
Mm.
And the individual they talked about was Dr. Schuhart, Dr. Duran, Dr. Deming, Dr. Masing, and maybe Crosby. So, and the answer was 50% said Deming. I was surprised and shocked because I thought in Europe people didn't like Deming because too straight. And then the rest was Duran and then Crosby. So I raised a question as to, you think Japan made 60% of the contribution,
Mm-hmm.
but no Japanese name
Yeah,
amongst the
yes,
individuals.
yes. You said that is
2000 or 2002.
2002.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know. At that time, White, no, as a candidate, must be said. Ishikawa must be there. Yeah.
But no candidate there.
Oh.
So when I asked that question, everybody was surprised.
Mm.
That is true.
Mm.
And it's just that it broke two myths for me. One, I thought TQM is not accepted in Europe.
Mm.
But reality was most of the participants believed in it. Of course, the name may be different.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, for them to accept Deming as a, because by that time Deming had become very famous because of his association with Japan. So what I sensed out of that, that TQC or TQM may not be the terminology used. And after that, worked with some companies who had competition with the European companies, like Michelin. If you look at the website of Michelin, all the Japanese practices are common there now. Small group activities, cross-functional management, daily management. So we may not use the term TQM, but those methods have been absorbed by both USA and Europe around the world. Like Japan learned from the West, particularly USA. This the world has learned, absorbed, and given it its own names, which is, I think, a great contribution by Japan. In India, we are attempting to do the same.
Okay.
I think we'll conclude here. There's so many things to learn from you, Dr. Kano. And Noriaki, then next time around, when you have a little time to spare, we'll continue this dialogue.
Okay. Thank you.
And with a little more specifics. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Dhanyavad.
Appreciate it. Dhanyavad.
Dhanyavad. Dhanyavad.